Welcome to the YCast, everybody. I'm your host, Malachi, and we're here to talk about Season 9, Week 14. With me today is my co host,
Hello, Evil here.
uh, and let's get started. First, we're just going to go ahead and quickly review the playoff standings for everybody. Um, North and East Kai have confirmed all their standings this past week. North Kai, Earth Defenders clearly have the bye, but Rugrats and Vals now are locked in for the playoffs, with Saiyans unfortunately being locked out. East Kai, Majins, clearly have the bye week. Derp and Namek are now locked in, and Ginyu is unfortunately out. Um, now that brings us to West Kai and South Kai, where in in both in West Kai we have both a contention for the bye week and a little bit of contention to see who's going to be out. Cold and Androids are fighting for the bye, while DB Warriors and Gohans are going to go into the last week of the season fighting for that last playoff spot. DB Warriors have to overcome Earth Defenders to guarantee their their playoff spot, but Cold and Gohans have a divisional match that is very important. If Cold wins this match, this in week 15, they guarantee their bye week and they guarantee that Gohans are out. So that's a very important divisional match that we'll talk about in a little while. Um, and as for South Kai, you have Booze, Afterlife, and Blades still in contention for the bye week, with Booze having a 1 win advantage over everybody, and Team Muscle is out of the playoffs. Um, would you like to do the weekly review for our matches?
All right, so weekly review. So starting off with match one, we had a divisional match between Derp and Namek, and Derp won that one. Well, Devilman won that one. Match two was Muscle versus Androids, in which Cell won that match.
Yay! Got my elite!
Finally.
It's
Ma-
Mr. Perfect Cell, by the way.
oh, okay. Mr. Perfect Cell. All right, match three was a divisional between Cold versus Dragon Ball Warriors, where Cold is once again starting to seem like they're going to grab that bye week, while Dragon Ball Warriors, they're still hanging in there. They can do it. Uh, Match four was Vals versus Majins, where Majins once again have been just racking up the wins. Vals take a loss. Match five was yet another divisional, Sands versus Earth Defenders. Do I even need to say who won that fight? Yes, once again, Earth Defenders still winning. They're now, what, 13-1?
Correct, unfortunately.
Ridiculous. Match six was yet another divisional, Booze versus Blades, where Booze just demolished the Blades. Yay. Match seven was Ginyu versus Rugrats, where Rugrats. Nope, nope, nope.
Nope,
Ginyu
Ginyu.
won.
Ginyu won this one.
Ginyu won. Yes. I know everybody is shocked about that, but it was awesome.
It was
And
glorious to view.
it was. And match eight was Gohan's versus Afterlife, where I I was cheering for Gohan for the first time, and I felt like I wanted to throw up, and I need to take a shower, but Gohan's won, so we're heading Afterlife.
Yeah, well, adult Gohan won that one.
Oh yeah, he almost won the
Apparently, all the Gohans needed for that match was an adult.
league. Yep.
All right, so let's take a closer look at all these divisionals. Just as a reminder for everybody, the last 2 weeks of this season, we will be having we had four divisionals this last week, and we're gonna have another four this upcoming week. For the
Mm-hmm.
most part, these matches aren't really determining anything, um, except in I think this past week the only divisional that really gave some light of things going into the playoffs was Cold and DB Warriors and Booze and Blades. And next week, the only divisional that quote unquote matters for playoff purposes is Gohan's versus Cold. However, that doesn't mean they're unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
A win is still a win. So let's start it off by looking at Derp versus Namek.
Well, as you said, this fight didn't really matter. Ginyu Force is already out. All this really determines what whose map we're going to start on for match one and three if it goes there.
Potentially assuming that Derp loses in week 15 and Namek wins.
Okay.
Um, so I think so. Yeah, I mean, if Derp wins and Namek loses, or they both lose or both win in the coming week, Derp will have that map advantage.
Hmm.
Um, on the whole, it was a pretty entertaining match, especially the ending with a 30k Devil Might Beam.
Yeah,
And
it was one of the characters that he hits with, and he does maximum damage. So,
yep, and he had key plus two.
hmm
Oh,
well, he had indignation as well. So,
yeah, I think he
I
was
think
on.
at that point he was at +5 because I believe he was on his last bar.
Yeah,
So,
so it was like plus a half,
yeah,
super plus a half. I mean,
hmm
but still, 30k.
yeah.
That hurts just thinking about
It's
it.
just like, oh, well, there goes literally my entire character. Like, and
Yep.
the fact that we have the same exact character on our team with Evil Boo, because King Piccolo is just pure Evil Boo, and I believe he hits himself for that much damage. And Devilman hits Devilman. I think it's also Omega Shinron. I think
Uh,
it's those four characters. I want to say that
he,
he hits for maximum.
that sounds right. There's a list somewhere.
Mm.
There's like 7 or 8 characters. I think about 5 of which are actually in the league.
Yeah,
That it does 30k to, including Devilman.
yeah, he's going to himself.
So I think that you know it's one thing you've always got to plan around. I mean, on my team, there's like 3 characters where you're looking at 15k plus, and then you have
Hmm.
16 and 8 where, oh, hey, hi, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, it's like what, like 6 to 8K.
Yeah, 16 takes like 5 to 6k. It's not a lot. 8 it's just a miss.
Hmm.
Um, so, but I mean, this is the 5th one he's thrown out this season. Um, so I mean, let's enjoy the beauty of Devil Might Beam.
Hmm.
Um,
Uh, I'm gonna
but
go ahead and talk about Namekians for a little bit.
yeah, sure.
Namekians, they have some good things.
Yep.
King Piccolo is easily one of their best members. Bringing back early has been pretty good for them. Late's been
Mm-hmm.
fine. They changed Tambourine this week. They actually took off the Eternal Life off of Tambourine and gave it to Slug, and I don't believe Tambourine did nearly as well as he usually does. Um, and I'm not sure if I'm the only one in this, but I'm sick and tired of Slug. Like I actually personally messaged the coach of New Mexico, and I'm like, can you please just take out Slug? Like,
Uh,
like Slug has been the bane of their existence for a cool minute now. And this upcoming week, this past week, where they changed him to like a super tanky defense build with Eternal Life, I was like, if you were gonna do that, why not just bring back Baby?
I mean, I'll be perfectly frank. I mean, at that point, I would generally agree, but it might be a thing of since they know they're safe, they might be testing Slug to see if they can make him work for their team for season 10 already, and we might just see Baby back for the playoffs.
I guess.
Um,
I mean, they kicked Baby off for a reason, so I
they
would
did.
work for the playoff. So
I
I would
mean,
try to get Baby working again over
eh,
Slug. Slug's just been not that hot.
well, I mean, it's just always been a question whether he can work as a 35 to 45k character. If you're hitting right around that 40k, and let's see, what's his average at? It's 29k. I mean,
Mm-mm.
at
And
that
what's Baby's?
Baby when he left was 36k.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I feel like they're trying to see if they can get him to work for their team as a whole before dropping him for Nail. Because they're now using a slug in the slot that Nail would take up, which is a tank slot.
Yeah.
However, that being said, I have no idea what they're looking at. Now some weeks I'm not gonna criticize too much because they did try a couple things out, like with one week because they have been changing slug around a lot. So
Hmm.
we could just be seeing them having experiments with Slug that aren't going well. Like against Earth Defenders, um, he was key plus two high tension on Chaozu AI, whereas this week he was a tank build. And I don't, maybe if not all those experiments are going well, we're seeing some impact from that.
Yeah.
So
And
that
since he
is
got lined
something,
up against a better tank in Doria, who
yeah,
has already got a lead. Just like if you're gonna go with the tank build, and we're talking about for playoffs, if you're just gonna do that for Slug, I would switch out for
yeah,
Baby. Like Slug, the only thing that Slug beats Baby in is just B2s.
yep. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next divisional, which I believe is Cold versus Gohans.
No, Dragon Ball
Uh,
Warriors.
yep, you're correct. Cold versus Gohans is coming week, where
Mm-hmm.
this past week Cold won, and I hope next week they win. Go figure. Um, but Cold versus Dragon Ball Warriors. It's it really just came down to the fact that Cold was just playing better on the whole. Um, and
It was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of like lead back to even, lead back to even. Some of the disappointing things on Dragon Ball Warriors, and it's just that Vegeta wasn't spamming nearly as much as he
yeah,
needed to.
that
Like
that
he threw a couple B2, didn't hit with a lot of them. His melee game wasn't as hot, and while General Tao did really well against Meta, he just kind of got his butt kicked by King Cold, and it was all downhill from there.
yeah.
So
I mean, I feel like if anything could have gone better for DB Warriors, like to be completely frank, I have the damage stats uh, done. Let me pull them up right here. If I'm not mistaken, like in terms of like raw damage, and early Goku was the worst there. Um, because Vegito still did the best. He still did 54k.
mhm.
Um, but it's just with early Goku, you can't blame him too much because he was doing well and then Cooler transformed.
Yeah,
Um,
and Kuma blew up the planet on him. That
yeah,
took a nice chunk out of his health, especially with his defense minus, and then he transformed and just went to town on Goku.
yep.
So
Uh, sometimes because sometimes that alt and just losing that momentum, especially from a map change like that, when you lose that
hmm
momentum, sometimes it just kind of that's just it. I mean, Nam did 50k, Tal did 40k. So I mean, both Cole and DB Warriors were on point. Cole just did a little bit better.
yeah, he also
Um,
pulled off a rebirth. That
yep,
didn't help.
that didn't help at all, and it was close enough to where, like in terms of raw damage, uh, Dragon Ball Warriors I believe out damaged Cold by about 1,000 damage. Um, in
But
large part because of that rebirth.
yeah,
So I mean, it healing and healing from that rebirth was very crucial.
yep,
Might not have it might not have meant that DB Warriors would have won had it not gotten off, but it made it a lot, made it so that when Colt came out, he didn't have to do as much.
hmm
So, but yeah, the big impact from that is that it had DB Warriors had won this, Gohan's would have been guaranteed out.
yeah,
Because that didn't happen, going into week 15, if DB Warriors or Cold wins, Gohan's are out. If DB
hmm
Warriors loses and Gohan's win, DB Warriors are out. Um, and then who Gohan's face in the playoffs will depend. If Gohan's are in, will depend on um, whether or not I win my match against Blades next week.
yep,
Um, so, but if Cold, so here the big takeaway from that is if Cold wins, you know, the playoff match will be Androids versus DB Warriors, which will be
yeah,
interesting. I'd like to take some revenge.
yeah,
Um, so, but I mean, I don't think there's really too much room to criticize on either side. I think both sides were doing the best they could. Um,
hmm
said with early Goku, the only thing that happened was he lost that momentum, and the DB Warriors just never really recovered.
yeah,
So moving on, Saiyans versus ED. Um, Saiyans tried. Um,
Turles tried.
Fair, Turles tried. I feel like I feel like everyone else just kind of got the worst matchup that they could.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because like even Scouter was trying, and it just felt like nothing he did worked.
No.
Um, you know, same with King Vegeta, because I mean, you look at Scouter and King versus my team versus and then versus the Earth Defenders, and they're the same builds. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just a matter of who they were matched up, and it just did not work out for them.
No.
And
It also didn't help they had Bardock out, and you know,
yeah,
even Earth Defenders messing around with their style of strong that did nothing. They still,
yeah, mid Goku style is strong, throws out one ult, and the map eats it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that rock took like 30K, man. You don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I mean, at least we won't see that same build this week.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, Earth Defender's still looking strong. I will give
Mm-hmm.
them this. It looks like they might have TN working finally.
Yeah.
Maybe at the
That's scary.
that's scary. It might be. I mean, Yamcha's build is still annoyingly good. Um, you know, because he has a the annoying thing about Yamcha is he has two spammable B2s that are really cheap, and then you give him
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Power,
Yep.
and with good defense and healing, and he's basically the perfect tank.
Yeah.
He kind of got showed up this week by Turles, which is good to see. Hopefully, you know, this is the first crack in the Earth Defender's armor. That means they need to look at something. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's talk.
So, oh, hold
Oh,
on, because the
go
big
ahead.
factor of this match is that Val's lost. So if Sans would have won, then it would have been one closer to Val's, and it would have been determined by the next week divisional Sans versus Val's who made it in. But because
Yeah,
Sans lost, now they're just officially out. So
yeah. And, well, the other thing that contributed to that was Val's losing against Majins.
yeah.
Had Val's won this week, they would have been out, or Saiyans
Even
would have been
before.
out. And it's the same with the Saiyans. The Saiyans had to win this to maintain playoff hopes.
Mm-hmm.
Tough break, Saiyans. I do hope maybe next week you can get some good testing in.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see. But kind of moving on to a match that I'm sure you're very happy about.
Oh yeah.
Um, Boost versus Blades.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about this.
Oh, it was a spicy match. Like, uh, of course, we were like, okay, they're probably going to start Jane. Who can we line up to fight against Jane? We're like, we don't trust much anybody who starts like that except for Gohan Boo. And Jane was pulling ahead, and Gohan Boo kept fighting back, and it was back and forth until Gohan Boo eventually just started pulling ahead. Like, uh, Blades are just kind of a little bit derpy. All three, everybody who could have ate just a Kamehameha to face did. Jane ate one, Tapion, no, not Tapion, Yadrobi ate one.
Yep.
Cyborg Tao ate one. Like they were just getting all up in the face when they were charging that Kamehameha. They just ate it, blew their head backwards, and it's just like wow,
Yeah.
Because Jane ate that Kamehameha, swung in Gohan Boo's favor, and he beat up Yajirobe a little bit, tagged, never had to come back. Evil Boo kind of made me frustrated because we wanted to see more of him. He fights Yajirobe to half his health, tags, and it never comes back, messes up his stats,
Eh. Y-
and we what that
just take the win. Just take the win.
yeah. And we finally got Kid Buu working. Finally, it took us a nice chunk of the season, but we finally got him working.
Well,
God,
let's see if he's still working once you take away his boosts.
what
And
do you
then,
mean by boost?
uh,
Oh,
he
the boost that he had this week?
yes.
Oh, he was working fine before that.
Okay. So,
Yeah. He did really well. What the previous week against Derp, the week before that against Majins. He did well against you because that was the same Kid Buu. So well against Gohan. Yeah, that Kid Buu has been working. He did 2 planet bursts this week, and
yep.
Cyborg Tao just kind of ate that, and it was
Well,
amazing.
Cyborg Tal didn't have much of a choice with one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, because his Kid Buu threw it in his face when Cyborg Tal was in his face.
Mm-hmm.
So,
He just Kamehameha and did like 14K and then charged up playing the burst and that did like 17K. And it's just like, all right, bye, Tao. That was doing really well up until those two
Yeah,
attacks. Then there went all his health.
yeah.
And they.
I mean, so I mean, for several of them, I really can't blame them. I feel like especially Cyborg Tao and Tapion were doing the best they could. Um, Yajirobe, the idea was very interesting. KSA and Dende's, and then just a few other small, melee boosts. I mean, the idea seems to be working for the most part. I think it was a tough week. Y'all are just a tough team at this point. Y'all have gotten most of your team working, and I mean, with Jane, I feel like I know how frustrated they are to, but I feel like this is just the same thing we had happen with Cell, where there were just a few weeks where the RNG was against you, and I feel like we were seeing Janemba come back. I feel so. I think Janemba was back to his old self. It's just that he was up against someone who was just as good as he was.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have Gohan Buu, who's a decent. He is a bit of a tanky build, but then you also have Majin Buu AI, which is another really heavy melee AI.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't lose too much hope. Blades, I know it's looking rough. At least you're in the playoffs, even if you don't get the bye week to figure things out.
Yeah,
Um,
you do fine. Just, beat after life and then we beat you and then everything is fine.
yeah. Uh, So, um, but yeah. So now we've got a couple honorable mentions for the week. Um, so let's go with the first one, the first two, which are kind of tied together. First one is Cell finally going elite. Um, this is my first elite in the main season since I became a coach way back in season 6.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people go elite in the preseason just about every preseason I've been a coach, and yeah, someone will go elite in the preseason, and then they'll tease me. They'll do like 98, 99,000, but they'll never get to 100K until Cell finally went elite, and
Yep.
I celebrated by posting his song everywhere, and Mr. Perfect Cell is enjoying the salt he is rubbing in Bleep Mancer's wounds from that. Um, However, I also got to admit, and this will be just as Cell has entered into the Hall of Fame of Elites, Android 13 contributed a lot to this and is entering the DBZ League Hall of Shame
Yeah,
for
I think
doing.
it's only been one other time. Go ahead.
If we think it's only happened one other time where a character has done 0 damage in a match.
Mm-hmm. Had to rewatch the match and be like, wait, did he do nothing?
He did nothing. He threw
Not
out
a punch,
and
nothing connected, nothing. That
his
tracking, oh, that was scary. What
that
is
that alt's tracking is absolutely ridiculous.
if that would have swung around and hit Cell in the back of the head, you would have called shenanigans.
I call shenanigans anyway. But as Byrne pointed out in the comments, that's a huge reason why 13, like that move is why 13 has so many nerfs.
Mm-hmm.
He can't have EL because of healing transformation, but he also is restricted from high tension and tension and up, which are two very useful Pataras for him because
Yeah.
those help him passively charge faster.
Yeah, but just like both it, like his transform state, that ult turns into a B2,
It
and he has a
does.
super explosive blade. This is like, oh no.
Yeah, there is a reason why he is so heavily, um, well, I wouldn't say heavily because high tension and tension up are not huge nerfs, but still, I mean, hey Ryan, muscle, I'm more than willing to take him if you want. I, I will still take
I mean, look, he
13.
did 0 damage. He's clearly crap.
I
Just go
mean,
ahead and give him to
he
the
he
Andres.
he did 0 damage. I mean, I will fully understand if you will take Garlic Jr. over 13. I will fully understand. We will take him and run with it. Um, let's that's enough talking about that. I don't want to celebrate too much. Um, uh, let's talk about something that is also extremely worth celebrating, which is Ginyu's second win against Rugrats.
Yeah, they
Um,
did really well. Everybody showed up, and it was
yep,
amazing.
it was fantastic to watch. Ginyu did a body change
Hmm.
into Jace, took out GT Goku, and quite honestly, just at that point, I mean that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
GT Goku still did like 70K when all is said and done.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, you're essentially trading Ginyu for GT Goku. That's a good trade any day of the
Yeah.
week.
Any day. Yeah.
You know what I would love to see though?
But,
I would love to see Ginyu's ult take somebody out because
yeah.
he still does that 3,500 damage at the front end of it.
Hmm.
I would love to see that take somebody out or end a match someday. That would be hilarious. But yeah, no, everybody on Ginyu was looking fantastic.
Yeah.
Birder was on point. Guldo was doing well. Jace seemed to be back to his old self. I mean, this is
Mhm.
really a glimpse of the Ginyu we were seeing, you know, seasons
Yeah.
in seasons past, and I hope
Yeah.
it's here
Season
to
8, he
stay.
made it to East Coast. Yeah. Uh, we saw that Super Boo try to do rebirth, like spam
Yeah,
it.
he and that right there is why, you know, rebirth. There are B1 healing restrictions. Can you imagine if he had managed to get off? Like, granted, three of them were in a row that he tried to
Mhm.
do this, but if he had
um.
managed to just get off two of those during
Yeah. I can imagine that. It's called Season 6. Super Saiyans versus Valves.
fair,
With
um,
their free agent Gotenks Boo, we pulled off like two, three
yep,
reverts.
yep, uh, it's still so yeah, not gonna touch that one.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, this is a just a fantastic look at what Ginyu can do. I really hope this is starting a turnaround for them, and maybe coming in season 10, we will see Ginyu, maybe not jumping up to North Kai, but maybe we'll see an 8-7 or 9-6 Ginyu next season. I
Yeah,
mean,
that'd be nice.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 9-6 Ginyu next season if they
Hmm.
keep going like this. Um, And then I think we got one last small topic to talk about, and that is just a suggestion that was brought up by uh, Ryan, the coach of the Muscles, which was to expand the Master Blast restriction to characters who had the unblockable sword key blasts, like Deborah, Krillin's Destructo Discs. Um,
Jane, Yajirobe,
yep,
Tapion, Sword Trunk. I think like almost the majority of the blades.
yeah, pretty much all the blades, and then Krillin and
And
Deborah.
Deborah. Hmm.
Um, so uh, me and you find ourselves in that rare moment of agreement where we're both like, there's really not a problem here.
No.
I mean, on the one hand, I do want to give Ryan his due because he does point out that there is potential here for a lot of damage really quickly for cheap.
Hmm.
On the other hand, it's been 9 seasons across two AI difficulty changes, and we are all so. And on top of this, we don't know for certain that Master Blast affects these unblockable key blasts. Assuming they do,
I would assume they do because all they
yeah,
are is just charged key blasts. So I'm assuming they do.
yeah.
But
So, but assuming they do, I mean, the bigger issue in my book is yes, those are damaging, but the bigger issue is the AI never flipping uses them, except maybe about 5% of the time.
yeah, they're no
Um,
freaking Vegeta volley.
yeah,
Not that.
yeah,
And I wouldn't lie if I said I never thought about this. And but really what it comes down to is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is there a potential to be super powerful? Yeah, there is, but until it becomes an actual issue worth addressing, then there should be nothing done about it. Like, all of a sudden, if we see like a Janimbo with an attack +2 build with Rush Blast 3 and he's like sword slashing and doing like 5K and he keeps spamming it, then oh yeah, it's gonna be a problem. But really, the only person who actually does do this, because I know no one on the Blaze does it, is Deborah. And Deborah has already been discussed on whether he should be banned from Rush Blast 2/Master Blast, and it was decided no. So I mean,
Yeah.
the conversation kind of ended before it even began because we were discussing Deborah because Deborah has similar fiery rush blast as Nova Shinron, who is banned from Rush Blast 2 and Master Blast.
Yeah.
And they compared the damage and they said, no, Deborah just barely makes it under to the point where he doesn't have to be banned from it. So he gets to have fun with his Rush Blast, Master Blast, and you just got to deal with it.
Now, I will say this. My response was very similar to yours, which is, look, staff has already figured out who they think should be banned from Master Blast, Rush Blast 2. That being said, a lot of those decisions were made on the European version of the game, which is what the league used to be on.
Right.
Um, since we have moved to a new version of the game, I am not opposed to looking at that restriction again and seeing if it's still relevant or if
I mean,
more
I
people
don't,
need to be added. Because I
yeah.
know with now I don't know if this is the case with Rush Blast or Melee, but I know for a lot of people, B2's got basically a super +1 buff.
Yeah, beaches are super strong in this version of the game.
What now? As I said, don't know if that carries over to Rush Blast and Melee, but it might at least be worth re-examining the issue with Deborah and Rush Blast because
I mean, this was an issue that came up earlier this season,
yeah,
and it was decided that Deborah wasn't necessarily banned because Nova got banned this season. So it's already occurred for
yeah.
Deborah, and they said he was fine. Like
Well,
I
they
said,
were
I
probably
don't
using
think
the
that admins are going to consider it. I mean, if they do, I don't care. That's fine because
yeah,
I'm not sure if the Blaze were planning on doing that Master Blast, Rush Blast 2 in the build anyway. So really, the only person who would get hit would be Deborah. But
yeah.
uh,
I
I
mean,
really don't care.
it's just one of those things of you know, in that
It's not the
particular
sword slash that's scary. It's
yeah,
that flamethrower that does like 8-9K, and that's really hard to dodge. That's scary. But we have two of those people on our team, so I'm not really complaining.
right. So, all right. So let's go ahead and move on to the predictions for week 15 to close us out for this episode. Um, first up is Sans versus Vals, and it is a divisional match. Yubel?
I'm gonna have to go with Val. Sands are putting out Turles, who was really one of the only few that did well in the Sands last week. Val's, they may have out Fasha, but they still got a Rayleigh, they still got 18, they still got that great free agent Garlic, and yeah, I'm just gonna have to give it to Val's. Not that
Yeah.
it really matters.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Sans doing it. I think that if Scouter shows up, I mean, King Vegeta's also been looking really good. They've still got Nail.
Yeah.
They'll have Bardock. I mean, this is definitely their strongest team coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but on the whole, I mean, a couple other characters still feel inconsistent. And so
Yeah.
while they're still good, while there's still a chance, I just think that Vals are a little more consistent. And because of that, they're more likely to take it home. So I'm going to give it to Vals.
Yeah.
Um, let's move on to the next one. And that should be fairly straightforward. Earth Defenders versus Dragon Ball Warriors. Yubel?
And I would like Dragon Ball Warriors to win, but Earth Defenders is just looking like a super scared team. While they don't have to face that mid Goku, they still got to face Krillin. They still got to face Vegeta. Tien is looking like he's shaping up. Yamcha's not terrible, and there's still a couple weak links when it comes to Dragon Ball Warriors. So
Yep.
I'm just going to say that Earth Defenders are going to go 14-1, and they will be a band like the Super Fans next season. No.
Yeah, well, we've already had that discussion about nerfs and such, so I'm not going to go there. I
Yeah.
would just want Dragon Ball Warriors to win for divisional reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm going to give it to them.
Yeah. That way you don't even have to worry about whether Gohan's will actually be able to pull off beating Colt.
If, uh, Rugrats versus Majins. Uh, Yubel?
Um, I would probably go with Majin if Majub was in, but because he's out and just how well he's been doing for that team, I'm gonna have to go with Rugrats. They're gonna have in their Go Tanks. They're going to uh, have a better, stronger leader, and yeah, I'm just gonna have to give it to Rugrats this time.
Yeah, I mean that Gotenks card is just too much. Um,
Hmm.
he has seemed to be really good this season. And so if Majins aren't bringing Maju Ben, I just feel like the rest of the team, while still good, can't quite handle Gotenks. So I'm gonna
Hmm.
give it to Rugrats as well. Um, so moving on to our second divisional of Week 15, Gohans versus Cold. Um,
I'm gonna have to go with Cold. I know if they win, then they'll get the bye week, and I know how much he won. But I just want Gohan's out. That's one way to prevent them from winning 3 seasons in a row is that they just don't make it to the playoffs. And Cold, they're gonna be throwing down. They have what,
yep,
35 Zenny?
36 or 37.
Oh my God, so much. They're gonna be putting Stylish Strong on everybody,
We were
and
Yeah. So no, Harume has basically confirmed that she's all but explicitly confirmed that it's going to be three style of the strongs plus something else on Cold or Frieza or whoever, and then we were joking around with her to either map swap or free agent swap Salsa into the bench just to waste all the Zenny. Um, I mean, Gohans could theoretically take it. They are starting to look better, especially with adult Gohan doing what he was doing. I
yeah.
just that look. I mean, yes, that looked good. That being said, I think he was on that build for more than 1 week, and so that might have just been a matchup thing that worked in Gohan's favor.
Hmm.
At the same time, I mean, all Frieza needs to do is one ult,
Oh yeah, just
and
one, and the lead will be huge. The
and
gap will.
yeah, and the other thing is with Gohan's having in Kid Gohan, future Gohan's also been really shaky, and I gotta give it to Cold. Setting aside all the divisional reasons why I want, like, there's the part of me that wants Cold to lose because then I might get the bye week. At the same time, I share the same sentiment as you, which is I want Gohan's to lose so they're guaranteed out.
Hmm.
Just because I don't want a three-peat.
Right.
Um, but anyway, let's move on. Muscle versus booze. I'm gonna go ahead and go first for this one. Um, I think y'all can do it. Y'all will be definitely giving you a good shot. However, that Broly build, whew, that that was scary this past week.
But one man doesn't make a team.
No, but you've still also got Bojack, you've got Trunks coming back in, who's also been doing really good. I'm assuming 13 won't have another zero damage week. Um, and he is usually pretty good. And then Roshi has been, you
Yeah.
know, he is a good closer, even if he hasn't exactly been he is on the low side of average. I think he's averaging about 35, 40K. Um, but I still feel like on the whole, like, you know, as if that Broly shows up again, I feel like Muscle's got it just because everyone else is good enough to pull it out. That being said, you're still good. I could definitely see y'all bringing it home, but I'm gonna give it to Muscle.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say that we're gonna go for seventh win in a row. It sucks that we have Kid Buu out because Kid Buu has been really good lately. But I mean, we still have Gohan Buu has been fantastic. Stood up to both Cell and Janemba. Uh, Fought them to about even, both of them. So that's great. Nova Shenron, you can't underestimate that guy. Them burst attacks hurt, and then Tomatoes, so good. Iwabu, he hasn't been bad. He's been, lots of energy spammy, nice and good. And, Ub is a great meleeer. Like I said, our team is looking very strong and very ready for the playoffs. So I'm going to have to give it to us.
Yep, fair enough. Next match: Androids versus Blades.
I'm gonna have to give it to androids. You're sitting out
Woo.
Jero, who's not bad, but he's probably still your worst. While Blades had to sit out Janimba, who is their best. Blaze have been looking kind of shaky. You've been looking kind of great. You got that 17 working. Cell has been doing great. Like Ader's been doing really well. Like yeah, I think you got it.
Yeah, I'm not going to vote against my own team. As you said, Blaze are looking a little shaky. I don't underestimate them in the slightest. I think that they've just had a rough few weeks. I mean, none of the teams that they have fought the last few weeks are what I would call weak teams.
Mm,
Um, so I'm definitely not underestimating them, but said I'm still going to give it to my team. So
all right.
moving on, Derp versus Afterlife.
I'm gonna have to give it to Derp just for divisional purposes. Uh, like I said, despite us being 1-1 ahead, the bye week is really close, and I just even if just in case we lose, I still want Afterlife to lose, so we still have the top spot. But
Fair.
I could see it go. I could see it going either way. Afterlife is definitely a very strong team, but they still have some holes in their team. While Derp, they seem like they're ironing things out. So I'm gonna say that just overall, I'm gonna say Derp is a little bit more consistent, but Afterlife can definitely bring it with just the Pycon and Vegeta alone. What do
Yeah.
you think?
With N Vegeta coming in this week, that means someone's got to sit out. I think it's either Chaozu or Zarbon. That's got to
Just
be out.
Nappa.
Go ahead. Oh,
Just
it's
Nappa.
Nappa. Yeah, with Nappa being out, I feel like Pycon and N Vegeta are just enough to. Zarbon is still probably a little iffy. I'm not going to say anything based off last week. And I don't believe for a second that, you know, and if Chaozu goes back to his old I could see, I can definitely see Afterlife doing it, and I think they're gonna take it with that Pycon and Vegeta combination. So sorry, but at the same time, as you said, Dirk can definitely take it as well. Um, and for the final match, a divisional match to close out the season, Namek versus Ginyu.
Everybody's cheering for Ginyu to win. Get that third win. Show us what you show that you're consistent. Show us what you did last week, and I mean, it doesn't really matter. The Namekian's already in. It's like, the only
Yeah,
thing I'd like to see from the Namekians is possibly paying to switch in Baby over Slug and doing well with that. It's the only thing I want to see from the Namekians.
that's fair. I mean, I want to see Ginyu win this as well. I think Namek has the opportunity to guarantee them a win, and maybe I don't know exactly what the standings for season 10 are looking like. But if Namek is on the verge of like maybe West or South Kai, a win could guarantee them a West Kai position possibly. And so I could definitely see them putting all their Zenny on it. That being said, they're looking shaky. And I really think Ginyu could take it even with everything else coming their way. And I really want them to get that third win. So I'm going to give it to Ginyu.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the last match for next week. Any closing remarks?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time on the YCast. Later.
Bye.